Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Edwards, and this is a Metal Talk from Metal Coffee Shop. And I am being joined today by our friends from TRA Snow and Sun to talk about engineered strength that stands up to snow. But before we get started, a few housekeeping items. This is being recorded and it will be available usually within 1 to 2 days on Metal Coffee Shop. So you can watch it on demand or share it with someone that you think would really benefit from today's presentation. We do have the chat open. So if you have questions, we have a time at the end set aside so that we can take some of your questions, but feel free to add any comments in the chat or drop your questions there, and we'll be sure that we get them answered throughout. All righty, let's get going. So the team from TRA Snow and Sun that is here today. First, Mindy Dahlquist. Mindy, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about you and what you do there.
Okay, perfect. I am the business development manager for TRA Snow and Sun. What that means is I handle all of our architectural trainings, contractor trainings. So if you need any more in-depth installation type trainings, I would be the person for that. I also do all of our roofing trade shows. So I am all over the United States and Canada, just being able to enjoy my time in the roofing industry and all of the fun things that have came along with that. I've been highly involved since starting with TRA. I've ended up in the Associate Advisory Council for Western States, on the board for Utah Roofing Contractors Association. And so the growth in this industry has just been amazing. I'm also a busy mom of three, and I like to be outside more than I like to be inside. So that's just a little bit about me.
You are in the perfect industry for that. And yes, Mindy, we see you everywhere. You're even on the road right now, headed
Yes.
home later. Well, thanks for being here today. And Lane, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm the technical director, which means all the engineering design technical pieces. I'm over that, do all the 3D CAD CAM pieces. Uh, I'm new to this industry. Before this, I was in semiconductor and automotive engineering design and manufacturing. So just trying to take those kind of different thought processes and bringing them here to TRA and working on improving our efficiency on that, making something good for from the shop floor guys all the way through to the customers. So we get a good product that's quick through there and not going to cost anything more and give us a really good product.
Yeah, it's all about design, engineering, performance, and we're going to dig into that a little bit deeper too during this conversation. It's really interesting. So let's talk a little bit. As we were getting ready, I knew this was coming, and I was watching the morning news, and they showed the map of the U.S. and from an atmospheric river in the Pacific Northwest that's turning into snow now. Across the country in the midsection, we're really seeing the weather changing and a lot more snow. So what's driving the snow retention needs? Mindy, why don't you get
Absolutely.
us started?
Of course. I would say definitely the snow in areas that have never experienced snow is something that is really changing things. And the uptick of metal out there in the industry definitely, and since we're talking about metal talk today, it helps. It is a slippery surface. And so that definitely affects the way that the snow is going to act on that roof surface rather than something that has a little bit more friction to it. But yeah, we are seeing snow. I know I have friends on Facebook that are in Virginia. They're seeing
Yeah.
snow in areas that they don't normally see a large amount of snow. In Ohio, currently, our weather, I think we're at like 8 degrees and we're supposed to get like 4 to 8 inches of snow tonight. Those are pretty large snowstorms for the Midwest and for areas that don't normally see that type of snow. But we're still receiving those heavy snow in those mountainous regions. So, any of those newer roofing materials that are going on are going to be affected by that. And then also just the changes in weather patterns. We are going to continue to see snow retention become more and more constant as these changes come to surface. And I think it's a good thing, though, that we're seeing those issues ahead of time rather than waiting and building these structures and then understanding that we will have issues down the road.
For sure. Yeah, you mentioned Virginia, and it comes to mind that when places that don't usually get snow, they don't have, they're not equipped to clear the snow, and nor are their roofs equipped to handle the snow that's on there. And what happens in those situations? That we can see significant property damage, if not even people damage, pet damage, right?
Yes, absolutely. In places where heavy snow does often happen, you do see those situations happen. So it's something that isn't considered definitely in the areas that are not used to receiving snow. And it's not a risk that you would even understand at that point. You're thinking, okay, if that snow slides off the roof, it's light and fluffy, it'll be perfectly fine. But the moisture concentration changes in that snow on your roof and it becomes much more icy and heavy, and so oftentimes when that snow does decide to slide, it can take roofing product with it. It can take the penetrations on the roof with it. And it can also most definitely cause dangers and hazardous dangers such as death and injury, which we have seen across the entire country year after year, from Vermont. I know a specific situation that happened in Vermont to Colorado, California, Utah, Idaho. Unfortunately, I can name off a lot of situations that have occurred that way. So just understanding that and understanding that the snow can become dangerous is very important.
Sure, sure. And for those, I just want to take a step back. Could you just explain snow retention and what it does, how it works?
Absolutely. So snow retention is basically a device that is installed on the roof, multiple devices. There's two main types of devices that are utilized as snow retention, whether it's a bracket or a snow fence. Snow brackets are not meant to stop that snow once it's moving. They're meant to ever stop the snow from moving. And so the goal of brackets is to be placed across the entirety of the roof from eave to ridge and hold that snow in an insulating blanket across that roof. And where the snow fences, they act a little bit differently. Oftentimes, they are clamped onto that metal standing seam panel, or if it's a different type of panel, then you can utilize a deck mount system where you're going into structure. And in those scenarios, you're allowing that snow to slide down into those fences. You still want it to come in contact to that fence and still want it to freeze to that fence. But like in this photo here, this is a 2-bar system with multiple feet of snow being held on it, and it's just frozen there into place. So it is utilized as a safety device to allow that snow to freeze right there. When it comes to this heavy of snow, you most definitely can shovel some of that off if necessary, if you're concerned about weight. But we just ask that you leave that bottom 3 feet frozen in place and allow that snow to just stay there and melt off as time happens.
Yeah, yeah, and it really does serve like an insulating blanket, like you mentioned,
Absolutely.
helps hold heat in the home. Okay, so let's move on to talk about how TRA gathers field research. And Mindy, you mentioned you're all over the place, right? So you're always talking to contractors. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I talk to a lot of contractors and also other manufacturers as well. The conversations that we have are very important. The feedback is amazing. And even if it's not just, hey, I love this product, what can we do better? How can we make the contractor's life easier? How can we make changes to this to make it easier for them to install, to make it faster so that they are saving money on their work, on their labor costs? And then also the architects, there's just so much feedback there. So many new roofing materials come out over time. And so being able to have that feedback and have those relationships where we have manufacturers coming to us and saying, hey, we're creating this new product. Can you match up to this? Can you make a product that will go with our system? And those are the best types of situations for a manufacturer. And we're just happy to have that opportunity to be able to have those conversations.
Right. Now, Lane, you spend a lot of time behind the scenes, right? Working on the products, designing them, making them better. How are you getting that feedback from Mindy and from the customers in the field?
We'll get the input. So we had an example. Minnie's working with the manufacturer. We want this certain snow retention. she emails me the info. Hey, here's the contact info, or here's the specs for this roofing product. This is what they're kind of thinking. Here's similar products that we have that they like. This, let's brainstorm the solution. So we'll have a group discussion on it depending on the range, or it might just be an individual between me and Mindy or one or two others. Do up a quick CAD design, verify that looks good, and we'll do we can do anything from a quick and dirty, shear something off and stick it in a press brake and get some parts bent, laser cut. I can go out to the CNC machine and cut out an actual piece. We've done a lot of small pieces like that where it's what is it, send it back out, talk to them back and forth and get the info on what they're doing, what their changes are as they develop. And, one project we just got comments back on because they've been revising what they're going to do for their final release of the product. And it's really nice having that relationship to say, here's what we've done for you. They get something. Hey, we've changed our design. Can you make this adjustment? Oh yeah, totally. Let's adjust this. Let's do what we can with our capabilities. We're able to work through those changes pretty efficiently.
And I think the
Yeah, I
best thing is the open dialogue just coming back and forth. They're able to, we've been sending parts out. We usually will like overnight them to that manufacturer. They test it out themselves. We're testing it on our end. And then they're able to say, hey, we are now changing the lip of this. We need you to make some adjustments. And then we just move forward from there. So it's great to have that back and forth because as a manufacturer, that's the best type of situation we could ask for.
Sure. It really says a lot about the partnership because the manufacturer who's making a roofing tile, a roofing, whatever kind of system, they understand that they're going to need some sort of snow retention. So they're not trying to do that themselves. They're reaching out to you because this is what you guys do. You're the experts, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's talk about that the early prototyping. You said, Lane, you guys can just like kind of make something one off and say, "Hey, what do you think of this? Try it out."
Yeah, and that I think that's one of the things that sets TRA apart, in the general realm, we will do a fully engineered roof system and warranted based on what that roof's type is. So if it's from a metal standing seam roof or a cedar shake and the angles, the types, and what are products that can be used for that, we'll do a fully engineered system and know we have our strengths that we test. I think I'm probably getting ahead of myself on different things, but we go through all of that thing. And the advantages early on with this stage and partnering with those manufacturers is we can do these early prototypes. We can get something very quickly. If it's a modification of a standard product, cut this shorter, lengthen this out, we can quickly put something together. We have laser cutting capabilities, stamping presses, cedar, CNC, machining, press brakes, shears, and great assembly and powder coat personnel. So we can get something really fast turnaround time as long as we have the information of what they want, do the design. I can do so much of it in CAD and do all the CAM work. And we had a bigger project where it was, you know, hey, we don't want to use quarter-inch thick steel. That's going to add a lot of weight to this. So a little bit of FEA and looking at it, yeah, we can go down to 3/16. Theoretically, it proves it out. We throw it on in actual testing on our testing fixture and show our strengths are still adequate. We still have our safety factor that we want, tweak the design to reduce it and get it out to them. And that those iterations through and through of sending those products out. Oh, we want something a little bit thicker. We do want it that quarter-inch instead. We think it looks better with the bulkiness of the big logs on the building or whatever the case might be. We can do all those tweaks, do the custom machining. I've done the design. I'm actually working on one now with a custom basic die to do a quick shape of the metal for a specific project. And if that works out well, then we have awesome relationships with manufacturers for us to create progressive dies to make a very consistent product that we don't have to worry about a huge variation in quality because we have that control right at the beginning.
Yeah, that must be so satisfying, right? When you're
It
designing
is.
something, you develop it, it looks great, it works, it does what it's supposed to do. I'm sure everybody gets excited about that.
Yeah, it for
Absolutely.
me, that's where the fun is taking something from the virtual world and a paper napkin drawing to a 3D model that you can spin around and get everybody a feel of it. And then, we even have a 3D printer to print out the product in size and find out like I like the size of that. That looks like it's going to match up really nice on this, if we were to get like a new metal seam. Let's figure out a clamp that fits really well and works with this one. Okay, now let's work on the machining of that and make something custom for it. Verify that's what we want. And it feels so good to have that go from a sketch through all
Yeah.
those iterations and hold it in your hand and like, here it is, customer. And they're like, oh, this is great. Let's put it on, test it out.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into testing. Let's talk about your testing process and because there really aren't a lot of codes or specifications out there for snow retention, right? I know that I've had this conversation with Mindy before, and really there's only small pockets of places like in the ski resorts in places that require it's part of code, but for the
Yeah,
most part
they'll
it's not.
they'll develop their own codes and their own things. The architects and engineers will have what they anticipate items should be too, but industry wide, there's not a set item. And so we are part of a group that is working to develop at least some standards for testing these things so that everyone's talking apples to apples as much as possible of testing for snow brackets, for an example. And so that's really neat to have that opportunity as the company to be in on that ground floor level. We've been in the industry for multiple decades and be working through that. Mindy can speak more to it now. She's back.
Yes, I apologize. I finally just gave up on the hotel's Wi-Fi and used my own hotspot. So I should be a little bit more consistent now. I apologize for that.
Excellent.
But yes, we are running into this over and over again. The architects don't have anywhere to turn when it comes to snow retention beyond manufacturers. And so they have to be able to trust us very thoroughly. And then when it comes to codes and standards that are available, in towns and in cities, it is just basically non-existent. If they do have regulations, it's install it over doorways, walkways. But what is a snow retention system? How much of that needs to be installed? There's just nothing out there. I know that a lot of our competitors are working with us as well to try to develop some codes and standards to get ahead of this in the industry. And being able to have these peer groups where we all sit together and put our differences as companies aside and work together to work with our products and try to make the best possible situation out there for the end user is really all we can do. So we are moving forward in that way. And I think it's great the relationships that we've built throughout the process, but always working with manufacturers who test their products and making sure that you are getting more information while putting these systems on and just we don't want to give it the old school go of well that ain't going anywhere, give it a little shake or stand on it. We want this to be something that is a full system because it will be holding back thousands of pounds of snow.
Yeah.
Right. So, how do you, because there aren't standards out there, and when I'm thinking of roofing materials, there's certain with all the codes, it's got to meet this wind speed or this hail resistance or this, but you guys kind of have to do it yourself and say what's acceptable or, talk a little bit about how you test and what you test for.
So
Yeah.
go ahead, Lane. You do a little bit more
Um,
hands-on with the testing now. So
Yeah, so it's we have our own standards that we've established over many of the years with it. When TRA first started, it was in development with a local university to determine some good testing practices and proving out the strengths of the um, snow brackets used on tile roofs. That was the original um, product that was the bread and butter. That's Tile Roof Accessories. That's our name, TRA. So, working and establishing that and some of those testing procedures with the universities and professionals in the field. And then from there, as we've grown and developed more things, for instance, with standing seam metal panels, um, we've worked to define what we are expecting as being a failure. And we have defined it not as the product it completely comes off and that's where our failure point is. And so, say the product came off at 1,000 pounds and and that's like a full rip off and we want a 2x safety factor, a 3x or whatever. We're bringing it to the point of how far did the product move? We want to minimize the movement on the roof. We want to minimize the way that it's coming off. Is it sliding? Is it rotating? Has it ripped screws out? Things like that. So for each of our various products, there's different ones. So clamp-ons, the most common thing would be it's sliding down the seam or it's rotating off. So we're loading this onto a load cell and exerting force onto it to see how it behaves. We mount a metal panel onto some sheathing, we load it and see how it behaves. Is it sliding? Is it rotating? Is it holding? At what point does it hold? Where does it go? And we do multiple iterations of these. Like our standard testing would be multiple parts on the same panel with the same clamp, the same, finish of the clamp and the panels. And what does that average out on? Okay, there's one group, and we do multiple groups all the way across to see that we're not a huge variation. We're bringing those any variations down to an acceptable limit.
I think the best thing about our testing process is we don't want to see the whole system just fall apart. That is not what we consider a failure. We consider movement or any kind of damage to the panel, any kind of those situations a failure because we want to maintain the longevity of the roof system itself and of our snow retention as well.
Now, what's in the picture that we have up on the slide? I was
That is
told
one
it's a
of our,
robot.
yes,
Yeah.
that is one
Yeah.
of our robots. So that is very exciting. That's pretty new to our manufacturing plant. We really have, it's amazing the amount of difference that we've had over the years. When Terry started this company, it was over 30 years ago, and they were folding brackets with one press in his garage. And now we have two full buildings that we are utilizing, and we have an automated paint line and a laser and all of the cool and exciting things. Many of these things have come. The robot, I've been with TRA for over 4 years, and the robot has been new within that 4 year time period. And I'm sure even Lane has seen new equipment as we've came in. So the fact that they're willing to put money back into our company and make sure that we are putting the newest and greatest systems on our floor so that we can continue to make stronger and better systems for the roof has always been something that matters to me a lot.
Right. Yeah. And as technology advances and, costs go down, there's so many ways that it can be leveraged to ensure consistency, quality, performance, all those things. So
Absolutely.
congrats on the robot. I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's talk. We touched on this a little bit about, working with even some of your competitors, putting your company logo to the side, getting together and doing what's best for the industry. So maybe we can talk a little bit about more about that and what kind of TM committee work and stuff you guys are doing.
Absolutely. So, Jake Anderson, who is the son of the original founder of TRA Snow and Son, he's involved in the ASTM task group. So I don't have all of the ins and out details of how that works or any of that, but I know myself from my involvement, like with Western States and some of that, it is amazing to sit on all of these different types of committees and be able to shape the industry, be able to talk to other people and see what their needs are, what situations they've ran into. I've met roofers. I work very closely with a lot of roofers across the country, but one specifically that I can think of in Montana came to me one time and he was like, Mindy, I just don't I don't understand why I would need a full snow retention system. And so being able to have those conversations and show him pictures of, well, this is what I have seen with partial installation, whether it's a low snow load or a heavy snow load, or hey, I moved to a house with a 26-pound snow load and thought that I didn't need snow retention on my roof, and it's a metal roof. And last year, my gutters were taken off by the ice sliding on my roof. So, all of us, no matter how long you've been in the industry, we are all still taught those hard lessons, and we continue to learn and help shape that industry while our competitors and our colleagues throughout roofing and engineering are able to help shape us as a manufacturer as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because we do all learn lessons the hard way. And
Yes.
sometimes it's a little embarrassing too.
No, it's okay. I will always share that story because I'm like, if you're the teacher and you get taught the lesson, then you have to make sure to pass that on.
Okay, so I know that you perform educational seminars for architects, and that's what you just did maybe yesterday, where you are in the hotel on their crappy Wi-Fi. But yeah, I'm just curious, what's the architects and when they're thinking about snow retention, is it something that's top of mind, or are they there because they want to know more and they want to know how to incorporate it?
So, snow retention will never be top of mind for anyone who is not in the snow retention industry. And the reason for that is it's the last thing that goes on the roof. It is very much going to be an afterthought for many people, but it is something that is so crucial to get into that design and so crucial to think about. Because if we're not considering the snow retention and we're just building out a roof system, oftentimes you're going to see those issues come up later down the road, and then you have to deal with a retrofit situation, and that is not always going to be ideal. With retrofit situations, you get into exposed fasteners, you get into more of that, and that's just not always the best situation. So with architects, I think people are oftentimes drawn to our course or similar courses from competitors just because it's something different. You can only sit through so many window classes as an architect, I'm sure, before you are bored out of your mind. And thankfully, I come in with a little bit of energy and a little bit of fun, different perspective of snow retention. And so we've always tried to put a spin on it that it's not always going to be ideal in every situation, but in the situations that it's necessary and it needs to be considered. I am in Seattle currently, and so there's not a whole lot of snow directly in Seattle. But these architects are designing outside of their own areas. So we have architects in Florida that are designing in Montana or in Lake Tahoe, California. If you are not understanding the level of snow that these areas are receiving and how to deal with it on the roof, then you're going to see major concerns down the road. And even just the ground snow removal, I have experience using heavy equipment and removing ground snow from COVID times because we all did weird and crazy things during COVID when we needed to.
Right.
And the company that I worked for was charging $350 per piece of equipment per hour. So, as a residential space, if you're allowing that snow to shed, you have to take into consideration how much cost that is going to cost the homeowner down the road, how many hours of shoveling or how many times that's going to be an issue. In commercial spaces, their budgets usually are not taking that into consideration as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's stuff you don't think about. Once the snow comes off the roof, you got to
Yes,
get rid of it and put it somewhere.
yes.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. And let's talk about um, the ways that, you're not only designing for better performance, but you're also designing and making changes to improve installation efficiency, which is huge because we all know that we're struggling with labor across the country, and if we can make it easier, if we can make it faster. So let's talk about what that looks like for TRA.
So Our pipe is 10 feet long. So threading through a 10-foot pipe, once you already have those clamps installed, can be very tedious, can cause some scratching on the pipe, can cause some issues there. And it does need to make sure that all roofers would need to make sure that their chalk line is dropped and that their clamps are on a specific point, or otherwise their pipe will not line up in the long run. So I'll let Lane kind of touch on this a little bit deeper into how we've established, and he has really been the driving effort of this. He's heard our complaints and he just went straight to work on his 3D printer, brought us some concepts, and I have never seen something. Usually we're drawing pictures on a whiteboard going, well, would this work? And then we're trying to test it out. Lane really brought in the professionalism of this and of this new product development to where it is just next level. So go ahead, Lane.
Thank you. So, like Mindy said, the our current system works great. You drop your chalk line, you install your clamps, and then you slide your tubing through and put on your collars and you're done. But it can be a bit labor intensive. You got to line it up. They're powder coated, but if somebody's not paying attention and shoving it through, you'll get something. And so that was one of the pieces, like we talked about, our discussions within the group, talking with customers, with contractors. One of the um, other people had come to the group and said, "Hey, I had this idea. Like, I was messing with like a carabiner. It's solid, but you just drop something in there. So could we do something similar? What can we do? What's a good way to do it?" And we talked about some of the ideas, and they're like, a carabiner on it. Well, that adds a lot of extra cost. You got a spring still and different things like that. So what are some of the ideas? We threw out a lot of different ideas, spring and this, that, came up with the different concepts. We do that 3D print. And the one that we're in the pilots testing now is really simple. It's got a slot. You drop the clamp through. It's got spacers. You got little clips to hold it in place. And, that was something that we talked about. And within a couple of months, we had from it first coming up as this is something we should consider doing. Let's look at the market and see, does it seem like there's a good possibility? Someone said, I think it's worthwhile. Let's pursue it. Let's get out there and be one of the first ones with this kind of an idea. Put it out there, make some iterations, do some testing, and we've had it up on a pilot project for a couple months now. Things are looking great. And then right there with it, we're looking at things and, fasteners. Do we really need to fasten this deck mount, for instance, if we're going into a structure with like a 3/8 lag? What is that really getting us? Would a 1/4 inch structural screw suffice? Well, let's do the testing. Let's put it on there. The theories say this is our strengths of that screw and this fastener here, and here's what our practical applications say. And yeah, we're never getting up to as strong as that one, because you're going to start deforming the roofing product or something else beforehand. So let's lighten the load. Let's make it less expensive. Let's make it easier for the guys. Instead of having 15 pounds worth of screws that they got to haul up in boxes each at a time and do multiples, we can do it with just a couple of them, smaller boxes, smaller, lighter weight, and little things like that to try and help do those improvements. I talked about looking at a quick FEA on, a 1/4 inch material versus a 3/16 versus a 10 gauge, and how did those look? And so we tried it out, 10 gauge, 3/16, 1/4 inch, what's feeling best, and we found a design that works well with a thinner material that's still just as strong. Or in some cases, you might want to say, engineering side, in my perspective, I'm like, I would rather my product have a deformation than rip off a roof. Like, I could design something that it's not going anywhere until that entire sheathing gets ripped off of the roof, but that doesn't help anybody.
No, yeah.
You want to see that there's a failure and to know what you need to take care of. And so we're designing them as best we can to have that balance. And then, when you look up there, like, oh, wow, this is a really heavy, heavy, wet snow year. Because all your snow averages that you do when we do these designs, we ask for your ground snow load. And so we design it based on that information, and if something moves and changes differently, then you know what's going on and you're able to pay attention to that. And so just trying to do all those little tiny improvements step by step, you make a big difference. You get to your goal.
And I think something else that's pretty cool that we've done recently is cost of metal has increased so drastically over the past couple years. COVID definitely, shortages of materials have really changed those types of things. Tariffs have changed a lot of that for us, and we've continued to maintain our prices across that entire time frame. I think we recently just had a price increase, and that was the first price increase that we had seen in like 5 years. And with that price increase, we were like, we don't want to increase prices on our customers. What changes can we make as a manufacturer to keep our prices the same? And so we actually redesigned our deck mount systems as a rafter mount system and decided to nest these a little bit better on the laser so that we're cutting down the materials that we are wasting. So we're able to make sure that we are utilizing all of that material to its full extent and keep those prices cheap for our customers.
Yeah, yeah, that's all good points. I mean, like you said, pricing, everything's going up, and for you guys to be able to maintain that, over the last 5 years has been pretty impressive. We have had a couple of chats, a couple
I
of
do
questions
see one
come
of
in.
those questions. Why we would design around the ground snow load as opposed to the roof design snow load is because the ground snow load is going to be the worst case scenario. So we are planning on holding all that snow on the roof. So a roof design snow load actually does take into consideration for minimizing that load and allowing it to slide off. And since you are not allowing that to slide off, you are wanting to utilize the worst case scenario load. Risking the ripping off of the roof, that doesn't matter which load you're talking about. That is going to be the type of. So the ground snow load, I'm seeing your comments come across here. The reason that we utilize that is because of, I mean, you can have drifting and snow
Frequency.
banking on your roofs as well. So that's why that is taken into consideration. And it truly doesn't make a difference for the end user or the customer. The reason that that is utilized is for our own testing and for our own engineering.
It allows us to have a consistent number to be able to base everything off of, no matter what area something is being designed for and what the architect might have put on their stats, is as long as things designed for that. Like when I built a shop here in Utah in the mountains, it was, here's your snow load, here's what your ground snow load is, and I provide that information to the architect. They get stuff, and if I had known about retention and wanted that, I could have provided it. Done. They would do their engineering calculations, but a ground snow load gives us an additional safety factor for it to say, if it's a 150-pound ground snow load, we have that as a baseline that you can get for near pretty much anywhere that you're going to have snow, right? You will be able to easily find your ground snow load,
It's
where your
consistent
roof design
across the
snow
map.
load is not consistent across there. So it's a baseline number that we can have our designs at and go from for that information.
And someone had asked, what do you think the main differences from TRA solutions are compared for S5? I honestly, we are just a customizable type of snow retention. I have no negative things to say about any of our competitors. And it is just, it's going to be a difference of opinion. We utilize zinc plated steel and then powder coat to over 50 in-house powder coat colors. And then we just try to be there for you as a manufacturer. We are a very small company in comparison, I would imagine. We're less than 40 people, including our production team. So we do everything in our power to make sure that we do as much as we can. But at the same time, there are always going to be differences. I mean, what
Yeah.
differences can you
One,
get between GAF and Owens Corning? There's always going to be differences across manufacturing, and there is a necessity for all of us out there. So I think that's the best part of it. As far as testing being evaluated by a third-party evaluation service, we do utilize an engineering firm that actually tests all of our testing things. They help with wet stamps in those types of situations. And we also make sure that they are testing our testing so that we are making sure that everything that we are doing is actually valuable information and that we're not either overselling or underselling what needs to be occurring on that roof. So I
That
hope
was
that
a
answered
point
everyone's
that,
questions.
yeah, that was a
Probably,
point that I was going to bring up. One of the things that I know I feel like sets TRA apart from a lot of the other competitors is that we will do an engineered design layout for your roof system. So you send us, hey, I want to put snow retention on. We will take your roof plan. What are your pitches? What is your material for your roof? Here's what we'd recommend as our standard products. And we have those calculations that have been vetted by a third party engineer, civil engineer, and then from there we do the design and we've had our strengths testing and said here's what our strengths are, so here's our design strengths. That engineering group has reviewed those and said yep, that's adequate. Your formulas for your engineered roof systems and what you want to hold and your safety factors all make sense. You design it to those, we approve them, so we have that option. I don't know if that's an option on S5 or other competitors. As far as I'm aware, it's not a common thing. Um, so um, I think it's a pretty great thing. I'm not involved on the sales side and know that. I just know that what we do, we are looking at it as being engineered. We put in that effort and we work with customers to get a custom adapted solution if that's what they need.
so I'm not sure. I know that we have a couple people on here that are from S5, and I think that we're getting a little bit of information that's coming across in our chat very directly to us. I do not wish to really get into any of this. I feel like this it kind of touches base on unprofessionalism on what I would consider. If you have further questions on engineering for our systems or what we do different from what you do, please forward that information to our company engineer, who is Jake Anderson. He would be more than happy to address that. But as a competitor standpoint, um, I don't feel the need to go there.
Yeah, our goal today, as with always with our metal talks, is education overall, right? We're not into bashing other products or saying one is better than the other, and our goal here is to do that education. But as such, since TRA Snow and Sun, we're talking about your company in general as well. So I want to make sure we do touch on the custom project support and how you help contractors find success.
Yes. So I actually had a customer come to us directly, a roofing contractor, and they were working with an architect and an engineer who specifically wanted certain types of products and for it to go into blocking. I believe we created this massive over the top, like 18 by 18 situation. It was the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. But those types of custom situations where you're going into different types of roofing systems and something that even the architect or the engineer has never went into before and trying to make those situations work for that specific roof system. I think that is where we definitely have a cutting edge is we're just willing to work with you. We don't need to come in and do anything wild and crazy. We are just here as your support, as your manufacturer. With that, you get me and Lane and whoever else wants to join in and have those conversations to just make sure that your project goes flawlessly.
Yeah, and that's a nice segue into I think you had mentioned that when we were talking earlier about it was big and ugly, but it did the job and worked.
Yes.
Yeah, but that this is all part of the support and service that you get in designing and figuring out what the need is for each roof. And this is just part of what you provide.
Yes. So basically, and I know that some of our other competitors actually do this as well, and Lane would not be aware of that because Lane is in our engineering department, so he has no necessity to know what our competitors do. But yes, we offer free engineered layouts, verified spacing, and product selection, and with that comes a lifetime warranty for those products as long as they're installed per that layout. And so with that, if you're calling us on a warranty concern, you're not calling and talking to a random person who does not work for a company or you somewhere out of the country. Sometimes anymore, you call for customer service work and you just go all over the place. That does not happen with us. You are speaking directly to the CFO of our company. And I mean, we have flown just specifically to locations if ever needed to see what is going on with a product or with a system. And that is at no cost to the customer. We are here to support our systems and to support our customers, and that is what we do.
Excellent. Very well said. Thank you, Mindy. Okay, so let's wrap up with talking a little bit about how you guys support innovation. And you touched on it earlier when we talked about the robot, but let's talk about some of the things that you do and that you focus on to continually be innovating.
So
Yeah,
we
I mean,
have, go ahead, Lane.
just we've kind of hit on it already. We have our laser cutter. We're able to cut, aluminum, stainless, standard steel, copper, custom shapes. What does the customer need and want? We work towards those. We go to fab tech shows, finding what is out there in the industry. What can we get to improve our efficiency and be able to pass those things on to the customers. Myself, I feel like with me coming and joining the team and having the CAD CAM design experience in various items and areas, we have that ability now to take that next step on doing some designing, doing some machining, getting those pieces through and a fast turnaround with a thought out, thoughtful design to help the customers with custom items that they want and have that talk back and forth. My experience and the background in manufacturing lets me get out on the shop floor and be looking at it on talking to production manager of, is this really how we want the design? Like, what is your issues on your manufacturing? What can we do to improve this or that? And we're working on new products to help with those things and talking with the customers on what's difficult for them and what can we do that way and working through those items that just it all starts to build up and blend together and then continue that role in innovation and improvements on our side to get through to improve to the customer side.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's important for any manufacturer to constantly be looking at what's next, right? And what are those solutions out there and attending those shows and seeing the new capabilities because things are changing so fast. What you could do today didn't probably exist 5 years ago when it comes to manufacturing. So yeah, it's important to do that. And we just wanted to touch on that and share with those who are here today how you guys do that. Alrighty. Now, any additional questions? You guys asked some fabulous questions. Thank you so much. But if you have additional questions, now's your time to put them out there. I'm just going to check our Q&A real quick. And I see one about aerodynamic shade. In cases of aerodynamic shade, roof snow can be 2, 3, or 4 times the ground snow. Comment there. I'm not the expert in ground snow and roof snow, I'll tell you that. But
Honestly, if it's coming from the same location, I think I'm just going to pass on the question. I've already mentioned if they want to talk deeper, it's another snow retention manufacturer. If they would like to speak deeper on that, they're welcome to forward those questions to our engineer and CFO of the company, which is Jake Anderson. I am not going to jump into the unprofessionalism of putting my competitor on the spot, but I appreciate it.
No, thank you, Mindy. And if anyone does want to talk further, TRA Snow and Sun does have a full directory on Metal Coffee Shop and Roofers Coffee Shop. So you can find contact information there and how to get in touch with Mindy, even or Jake, and visit their website. All right. Well, thank you, Lane, Mindy. Thank you so much. This was super informative and educational, and I hope that the folks watching this today really learned something new and took away some information that's going to help them be successful in their next installation, hopefully of a metal roof. And they'll reach out to TRA Snow and Sun. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending. As I said at the beginning, this is being recorded and it will be available on our website within 1 to 2 business days. So we encourage you to visit MetalCoffeeShop.com. Under the Read, Listen, Watch navigation is where you'll find it and you can watch it on demand. Thanks for being here, everybody, and we hope to see you on a future episode. Take care. Bye-bye.